Strap in! This episode peels back the layers of a conflict that's anything but predictable. From covert drone strikes setting fire to Russian strongholds to chilling revelations of children being traded like products, and behind-the-scenes power plays between Trump, Putin and Zelensky that could change the game. What's really happening beneath the headlines? Let's dive in. This is The Geese. Don't forget to follow us for the latest updates. Another week, another string of fires and explosions leading up Russia, and yes, Ukrainian drones are back on tour. The Rostov region, a regular stop on this flight path, got hit again on August 8th with the city of Milorov under attack. One likely target? The local military airfield, the same one Russia uses to launch those beloved Shahid kamikaze drones. The oil refinery in Novokubishevsk had an unexpected fireworks display, while CGBU-39 precision bombs, courtesy of the US, dropped in on the Russian positions in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. A battlefield reminder: what goes around comes around. Meanwhile, in Rostov, locals are reportedly losing internet and cell service. Weird how that happens when your infrastructure keeps catching fire. But don't worry, they're not alone. Across Russia, drones are clocking in both day and night, leaving behind scorch marks from Sochi's oil refineries to railway hubs in Surovkino and even targets in Voronezh. Ukraine's security service drones also struck 5 Russian fighter jets at Saki Air Base in temporarily occupied Crimea, a key hub for Russian operations over the Black Sea. One aircraft was completely destroyed. Thoughts and prayers. And what also has happened in Crimea, evading the invaders' missiles, combat drones of a Special Forces unit of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Primary, Ghost Team in English, successfully destroyed a Russian landing craft on the BK-16 project. According to the press service of the main intelligence directorate, the reconnaissance drones also burned 3 Russian radar stations. One of the drones, under which the Russians began to hide their expansive military facilities, was destroyed by Special Forces of Military Intelligence on Ipetri Mountain. The enemy's air defense base was located there. Did you know that in today's world, it is possible for Russian families to select a child, and not just any child, but a Ukrainian one, through an online system that resembles a shopping catalog? Since 2014, children from the occupied territories of Ukraine, including Luhansk, Donetsk and Crimea, have been systematically taken and transferred to families across Russia, including in Moscow and other regions. Now the aggressor has taken it even further. The Russian authorities have created an online platform where, under Daraj, Ukrainian children can be browsed by photo and chosen based on personality traits. This platform includes filters allowing users to sort children by gender, eye color and hair color, treating them as commodities, not human beings.
Most of the children listed in this catalog were born before the occupation of Luhansk and held Ukrainian citizenship. Some of their parents were killed by the occupying forces. Others were simply issued Russian documents to make their abduction look legal. When Russia demands lists of abducted Ukrainian children during negotiations, they need only reference the database available on the website of their own so-called Ministry of Education in occupied Luhansk. The evidence of their crimes is sitting in plain sight on their official resources. Mykola Kuleba, founder of Save Ukraine on Facebook.
This is genocide, a brutal tactic echoing Nazi child kidnappings during World War II. Today, Russia runs a system of eradication and digital control over adopted Ukrainian children, with 13 camps in occupied Ukraine, 18 in Belarus and 67 across Russia. The investigation by Medusa revealed Russian Ministry of Education documents that describe the war as a geopolitical complication, forcing families to relocate and portray these children as lacking the knowledge and social skills typical for Russian children.
If you know that a child has lost family members or their relatives are missing due to military action, focus not on the people, but on the events. Don't say things like, "It's okay," "Don't worry," or "They're in a better place," or "They're watching you from the clouds." Tell the child honestly that their loved ones died or that their home was destroyed. Say it directly. They are dead. From the Russian Ministry of Education's training guide, Support for teenagers arriving from active war zones.
This is not mere abduction. This is a systematic effort to erase the Ukrainian nation, cynically discussed by Scare and Rescue. Russia is waging war not only against the army, but against Ukraine's very future. The world must recognize this as genocide and defend these children with unwavering determination and no compromise. A meeting between the US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin could take place in the coming days, according to a top Kremlin official, as Washington increases pressure on Moscow to accept a ceasefire in Ukraine or face new sanctions. Kremlin Foreign Policy Advisor Yuri Ushakov confirmed that Russia had agreed in principle, whatever that means, to a high-level meeting with President Trump following the US leader's announcement that he intends to meet both Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in back-to-back talks. But whenever Moscow is ready to meet with Zelensky, he remained silent. The American side suggested the meeting and we have agreed in principle, Ushakov told Russian media on Thursday. He did not confirm whether a three-way summit involving Zelensky would follow, noting only that the US and Russia have agreed on a location that remains undisclosed. Trump, speaking from the Oval Office on Thursday, reaffirmed his willingness to meet Putin even if the trilateral meeting does not happen, emphasizing the urgency of halting the war in Ukraine. The announcement follows a recent visit to Moscow by Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff, who held discussions with Putin, part of a broader flurry of diplomatic activity after the White House issued an ultimatum to the Kremlin, agreed to a ceasefire or face additional sanctions. If the meeting proceeds, it will be the first in-person summit between American and Russian presidents since 2018. US President Donald Trump expressed doubt on Wednesday over whether Russian President Vladimir Putin is negotiating in good faith following recent talks between the Kremlin and the US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Pressed by reporters during a White House briefing, Trump was asked what gave him confidence that Putin wasn't trying to deceive him. "I can't answer that just yet, maybe in a few weeks or sooner," Trump replied, offering an ambiguous response that left questions hanging over the trustworthiness of Moscow's intention. Trump added that the ongoing talks should not be viewed as a breakthrough, describing them as instead a gradual process.
It's going to be up to him. We're going to see what he has to say. It's going to be up to him. Very disappointing.
Just a reminder that the US President Donald Trump is still waiting for a response from Vladimir Putin regarding progress in peace talks and has reminded about the 10-day deadline he set. But whether Trump himself will keep his promise, we will find out later. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham called on White House chief Donald Trump not to trust Russia but to check it out. According to him, the efforts of the US president and his entire team to end the war in Ukraine are bringing real dividends, and the introduction of 25% duties due to India's purchase of Russian oil was a decisive moment.
Excellent, Mr. President. I am confident that you, like no one else, can end this war fairly and in a way that prevents future conflicts. Congress, with strong bipartisan support, stands ready to help with our Russia sanctions and tariffs bill, co-sponsored by 85 senators. As for Putin's Russia, don't trust, verify. Lindsey Graham, U.S. Senator from the Republican Party on social media X.
The day before, US President Donald Trump announced a high probability of holding a trilateral meeting. The American president believes that both Volodymyr Zelensky and Putin will agree to the initiative he voiced in the near future.
I don't call it a breakthrough. I mean, we've been working on this a long time. There are thousands of young people dying, mostly soldiers, but also, missiles being hit into Kiev and other places. But in terms of soldiers, I think Russia's lost over 20,000 since the beginning of the year. 20,000. And I guess the estimate for Ukraine is about 9,000. It's a terrible situation. We want to get it stopped. We don't have American soldiers there, but I feel I have an obligation to get it stopped. This was not my war. This war would have never started, not even a chance. And it didn't start for 4 years.
The Kremlin, for its part, described the Putin-Witkoff meeting as a constructive and useful, with Russian state media reporting that Putin has sent signals to the US on the Ukraine issue and has received similar messages from Trump. More details are expected once Witkoff formally briefs the president. Following the Moscow meeting, Trump held a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In a public statement, Zelensky said it appears Russia is leaning more toward a ceasefire, but warned that the main thing is they don't deceive us or the United States on the details. When it comes to Putin's Russia, don't trust, check it. This is how Donald Trump's ally, Senator Lindsey Graham, commented on the results of the meeting of the US President's special representative with Putin. Witkoff visited Moscow 2 days before the expiration of President Trump's ultimatum. The world has leverage over the aggressor, Volodymyr Zelensky is sure. Ukraine will work for peace as productively as possible. The main thing is that Russia, which unleashed the war, really takes steps to stop the aggression. Kristina Dombrovska looked into whether Moscow is ready for this.
Ukraine is not afraid of meetings and expects the same bold approach from Russia, President Volodymyr Zelensky said. The head of state reported that he had a phone conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump. According to the New York Times, the discussion also included U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, U.K. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Finnish President Alexander Stubb, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. The main topic of the call was the results of a meeting between U.S. President Special Representative Steve Witkoff and Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Various potential formats of peace talks at the leadership level were discussed for the near future: 2 bilateral formats and 1 trilateral. Ukraine is not afraid of meetings and expects the same courageous approach from the Russian side. It's time to end the war. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The European Union's stance on Russia's war against Ukraine remains unchanged. The EU supports a just and lasting peace, the European Commission emphasized. They also added it is too early to discuss EU participation in any potential peace talks between leaders of the US, Ukraine, and Russia.
For what concerns these possible trilateral peace talks, I understand that the timing, the format, the logistics are still to be seen, so it's very much premature to say exactly what is going to happen.
Meanwhile, in China, officials have spoken of a critical juncture in efforts to resolve Russia's war against Ukraine. Beijing supports negotiations between both sides, said Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. His statement came as U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff met with Putin in Moscow.
Russia and Ukraine have already begun negotiations, taking an important step forward. The current crisis resolution process has reached a critical juncture. From a statement on the website of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China,
for the first time, Washington has received clear signals from Russia about possible terms for ending the war, said U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. However, he added that much still needs to happen before a Trump-Putin meeting can be discussed. Moscow, on the other hand, claims such a meeting will happen soon. Putin has even named the United Arab Emirates as a suitable venue for talks with Donald Trump. However, the Kremlin has refrained from making any concrete statements about a trilateral meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. As Putin has previously said, such a meeting would require, quote, certain conditions to be created.
The Ukrainians have a lot of experience of Russians saying one thing, or Putin in particular saying one thing and then doing something else. So any public statement would have to be taken with a grain of salt. Any announced ceasefire would have to have some kind of enforcement mechanism. And any plan to end the war would also have to include some kind of security guarantee for Ukraine, because the Ukrainians know that the war could start up again at any moment. But again, Putin has not said that he wants the war to end, and certainly he has not said that he wants it to end on the current, the current front line. He and people around him are still repeating their main goals as they have done for the last 3 years.
Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War believe the Kremlin is deliberately trying to sabotage U.S. diplomatic efforts. Russian propagandists are attempting to portray U.S. peace envoy Steve Witkoff as a rational negotiator, in contrast to what they label Donald Trump's unpredictability.
Certain Russian commentators are attempting to stoke schisms within the Trump administration, likely as part of a wider effort to avoid U.S. sanctions ahead of Trump's stated August 8th deadline for peace efforts in Ukraine. From the Institute for the Study of War.
The Kremlin continues to simulate interest in peace talks, but in reality, it plans to prolong the war, experts say. Ukraine, however, has made its priorities very clear, President Zelensky emphasized. First, Russia must stop the killing and agree to a ceasefire. Second, there must be leadership-level negotiations aimed at real solutions to end the war. And third, there must be a framework to ensure a lasting and durable peace. Zelensky is confident that this can be achieved, together with the United States and Europe. Reported by Kristina Dombrovska, UATV News.
I urge you to join the fight for freedom and sovereignty. Subscribe to our channel and stay tuned to what is happening in the world presented from Ukrainian perspective. Hope to see you very soon. Stay tuned. Goodbye.